All right, calling the village meeting of the Fredonia Village Board to order. August 21st, 2025. First item is to stand to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk Johnson, could you please do the roll?
President Lenz.
Here.
Trustee Eipert. Here. Trustee Frank.
Here.
Trustee Abeglin. Trustee Dorward.
Here.
Trustee Searing.
Here.
Trustee Van Roo.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Please note that public comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Follow the forms. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, approving the minutes of the August 17th Village Board of Trustees meeting and the approval of the general fund water and sewer invoices. Is there any discussion about the consent agenda?
Would that be the approval of the August 7th?
Yes.
For board consideration, the ordinance update.
Both of them.
So these. Yeah.
Village Board and organizational meeting,
Oops,
and approving the general fund water and sewer invoices.
that's a typo. Organizational meeting should not be.
Oh, all right.
My apologies.
Cross that off. So consent agenda, approve the minutes of the August 7th Village Board of Trustees meeting and approve the general fund water and sewer invoices. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? No, passes. Report on operations of the village by village president. I don't have a lot to report. The Administrator Jenkins and I went to the League of Wisconsin Municipalities meeting of chief executives and attended some interesting presentations and learned some interesting information about the fact that the state of Wisconsin is well positioned financially and competitively with the other states in the area and the states in the country. Beyond that, I don't really have much to say. So on to the village administrator.
Sure thing. I think I supplied you with my longest report. I normally try to keep it pretty concise, but there's just a lot of things going on. First off, Innovation Drive, we had inspections on the road and utilities, and that passed just fine, which was wonderful. The E1 lift station should be getting installed any day now. Yep, great. We did get the preliminary values for the TID itself, and those came in higher than we projected, which is wonderful. And you'll start to see things getting built there, right? If you drive by, Gasorowski has almost an entire building up already, and that's pretty exciting to see. We hosted here the quarterly meeting of the Ozark County Economic Development Group. So that's a group of various municipal leaders throughout the county. And we share our successes with each other to learn from each other. And then two, we hear presentations from different speakers. And so this time we heard from a member from WEDC, so that's Wisconsin's Economic Development Commission. And he shared with us various different ideas, a couple of which are grants that I think that we could qualify for. So Michelle and I actually had a follow-up meeting with that same individual then the following week. So I look forward to sharing with you more when we get there. We are working on the budget. Preliminary assessment numbers are coming in and state aid payments. A lot of the times we craft what that draft budget looks like, and then we just kind of have to sit and wait for the state to catch up with what those aid payments are going to be. So it's kind of the step that we're at. We're getting individual requests from department heads in as well. And then once that is all buttoned up, then we'll call a finance meeting to review that. I wanted to share with you a couple times where our infrastructure investments have clearly paid off. The first one was the NOSD fire and the barn fire that was just right by there. Because of the improvements we did on Highland, the ability to have a constant stream of water without causing water main breaks, without messing up Highland, is because we did the improvements there. So that's an example of, because we invested and put in the work now, we're able to have a stronger utility system that can support emergencies and things like that. And then the same thing after the, I think it was record-breaking rain that we had a week or so ago. Again, because of the improvements that we're making now within our sewer utility, we were able to withstand that barrage of rain without having to send alerts to our residents for low water usage, without our guys running to the plant panicked. Maybe Eric was, but nobody else ran to the plant panicked to make sure things didn't overflow. So again, I just want us to recognize those things, because it's easy for us to say, well, why are we spending this money? Why are we doing these investments? Being able to see it in real time, I think just adds a whole lot more meaning to it. Next up, as the village president said, we attended the chief executive conference. There was a lot of talk about state and federal spending, economic development incentives. And my favorite part of it is we actually get to break between small communities and larger communities. And I think to be able to do that in a circle, in a safe space, right, is a great place to just share ideas and share grievances and hear what other communities are doing. So I find a lot of value in that. And I thank you guys for letting me go off to that. I want to give an update on Fox Glen Road. We put out some communications, the marshal's office did as well. And I just kind of want to lay out what we've been kind of doing behind on the back end here. So the tactical incident was in May, and for a good portion of time after that, it was under investigation with the sheriff's office. So as long as they're doing their due diligence, we do not have access or interference with the property. Once they released that custody, we have things within our ordinance that we would follow up on right away, just like we would any other resident. So if there's debris in the yard that's accumulated, if the grass is beyond 8 inches, that's stuff that we regularly enforce. But we can't just go and demand it get done. We have to send a notice, and we have to wait an amount of time before we would send our guys out to do it. And so that was just this past Monday was that deadline. So that's why if you've driven by there, you've seen it cleaned up. Well, that's our guys that went out there and cleaned it up after so much time had passed. So moving forward, there's 2 things. One, we will monitor as much as we would anybody, the continual debris, the grass cutting. When we receive a complaint, we send a notice. It's a process we have to follow for that. And then 2, as far as the house itself, we're working with our legal counsel to send what's called a notice to remediate, and that goes to the mortgage company. So the mortgage company, I'm sure they know by now that this incident happened, but this will, in a sense, put more fire under their feet to act in some way, shape, or form. And then we could, if we needed to, go under the raise order process, but just so you know, it's a little bit of a cumbersome, messy one. So if they can take care of it within their own as the private property owners / mortgage company, we prefer that. But if we needed to go the raise order route, we kind of have it in our back pocket too. So just know that we're not forgetting about it. We hear the complaints when residents call, but there are steps and processes that we need to follow. Finally, I want to end on some positive notes with our recent events. So Madonia happened. We were worried going into it that we weren't going to have enough kids, but we had a lot of last minute signups that made that event super exciting. Even with a last minute change around the splash pad construction, I think I saw a lot of kids with smiles on their face, and that's what makes it rewarding to me. And then we just had Tuesday Tunes this past Tuesday. I know a few of you guys were there. We had over 250 residents at our park. And think about that. In Little Veterans Park, over 250 people came. That's record breaking for sure. And it was just a really fun night that people enjoyed. Beautiful weather. The Friends of Fredonia were there really managing that event itself. So I just give a lot of kudos to that event and how well it continues to be. And then my final shout out is to Tessa. So for those who don't know, Tessa Thomas, she's our lab technician down at our newer wastewater treatment lab. Today was her last day. There's a nice article in the paper about her. We put out a little social media message about her too. I don't know if I can play favorites, but I think she was probably my favorite employee. But we're sad to see her go and spread her wings and fly. Yeah. We're sad to see her go, but there's exciting things are clearly in her future. And if she wants to come back, we'll probably have a job opening for her too. So I'll end it on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good question.
Yeah.
Are we gonna have to go to some, environmental type of procedure through the county to get rid of that house?
So say it again.
You're gonna have to go through the county to get some environmental procedure for repossession or something. If so, how long is that gonna take?
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't sound like we have to ever repossess or take ownership of the house in that way. You would just be legally forcing them to remediate or remove the house. And so that's what that notice does. It says it's on you. You have to clean it up. You have so many days. And if you don't, well, then we have a legal injunction that we're gonna clean it up, but it's still on you, right? And so that's different than a raise order. That would be a different process. So we're trying the easier legal process first to see if, again, the mortgage company will act.
And I know I did see people there cleaning out the house.
Yeah, yep,
So I'm assuming that was family.
yep, correct.
All right, thank you. Marshall Leap.
Good evening. I guess the big thing for me for July was equipment issues. We came to an agreement with Axon to replace our body cameras. Set that up for 2 cameras, which is consistent with our 2 squads. It's a 5-year contract, and that's set to begin in January. Although actually we did work out just recently a brief mini period at the end of December for about a week, because that gets us the 2025 prices on it, and we're going to avoid the 2026 price increase. So we're gonna pay an invoice about $10 for the end of this month, or for the end of the year, and then we're gonna go into a 5-year contract moving forward with Axon. It gives us the 2 cameras, the equipment, and more importantly, what we're paying for is the access to the online storage, the cloud storage, and access to the evidence.com system, which is how all our agencies and district attorney's office share the evidence and report things around. That was an anticipated one. The second equipment issue was kind of a rude surprise. I was contacted by Chief Attorney of the Seaburg Police Department, who with information he received was forced to do a emergency in air quotes replacement of his duty firearms for his department. The 6-hour P320s. There's been anecdotal stories of guns going all the way back to 2017, discharging without a trigger pull. There's never been any direct evidence that it was a mechanical defect, and SIG has historically denied that it's a manufacturing defect. They've claimed that it's a user error or a holster error. A couple of recent events have caused that to come into question through law enforcement, and a great majority of the law enforcement agencies are now ditching the SIG P320s due to these safety concerns. The 2 big things lately were there was an FBI report off of a discharge in Minnesota State Police, where one of these guns went off on an officer just as he was walking through the squad garage. His hands were full, he was carrying something, and the gun just went off in his holster. The sergeant on scene was smart enough to keep the gun in the holster, sent it to the FBI labs, and they came back with a conclusion. Although they couldn't figure out why it discharged, they did identify some defects that they believe led to the possibility that with normal law enforcement use, these things could potentially discharge. The second thing that made it difficult to continue to keep with them is that SIG Sauer quietly changed it in the manuals to recommend that these guns not be kept with a round chamber. Having something in the manual that's contrary to how we operate just creates liability. Last I checked, it was a study done by I think Washington State University. There have been now over 100 reported discharges in regards to these guns, and I agree with Chief Cedarberg that in good conscience we can't continue to carry these. So I've been working, this month with Dan and, the village administrator, Dan Wolf, and, we're gonna go ahead and replace the fence
You have a
as quickly
replacement?
as I can.
Do you have a replacement in mind?
Yes, I do. We're going to go with the block.
Okay.
Very similar to what we have, was a Glock 47 9mm, was actually designed by them for the, Customs and Border Patrol.
Okay, yeah.
I understand that SIG disagrees that this is a mechanical issue, but there are not, I guarantee you, there are not 100 reports of clocks going off in holsters. So we're just gonna go ahead and bite the bullets, and we're gonna get that done. My plan right now with the old ones is I'm gonna retain them, I'm gonna put them in our evidence room. In anticipation of a possible class action lawsuit, which I suspect is coming at some point. Maybe we can get something back. And that would be it, so. They are our major news for July.
Well, thank you.
It's the same one that Milwaukee's pretty soon.
Yeah, the walk replaced theirs, they said Cedarburg went through and, they did it, it's happening all over. Which is one of the reasons that there's no resale value on these things right now.
Out of the officer in Minnesota who had the firearm discharged, was he injured?
He was,
Okay,
but there have been reports of injuries.
I'm sure there have been.
There are several lawsuits, and at least one death that's been attributed to, oh, that was a civilian death. So. Still tragic.
well, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for putting out that notice with I think both of you put that notice out on Facebook, because I'm sure there were plenty of people about the Fox Glen House.
Yeah,
And explaining the situation, so I appreciate that.
I felt it was about time, because, you know, people don't always understand that we have to follow, you know, some pretty elaborate processes sometimes, those processes take time. So, but we are certainly sympathetic, because if I was living right next to that, I wouldn't be thrilled looking out my window at it every day either.
Chief Weicker?
You have my report there, in your packet, some notable things, we received a new member, volunteer side of things, EMR, emergency medical responder, Cody Lewis, who lives up on, North Wilson Street. He comes to us already with the training, looks like Charter Steel, but lives here in Kansas. We signed on as a, emergency medical responder for our ambulance. And then one thing I don't have on here is, junior firefighter Chase Schomer, became a member of our junior program. So that puts our junior program at 5 kids right now. The junior program is 14-year-olds up to 18-year-old, kids that want to, look at careers in fire service. And so they hang out with us, learn everything, practice with us. As they progress through, they get older, they can respond to different levels of calls with their parents' permission. So that puts us at 5 with that program, and that's what we cap off at. Then special notes here, we had 2 major fire calls. We had the generator on the school, and then 2 days later, we have a hobby farm or a storage barn that's just north of the school off 57. Both incidents, just wanted to congratulate or just say kudos to the members of the department. There was huge, great response to both calls. And response time was awesome as well. So, and then we had help from neighboring communities on both those calls as well. Fire call volumes, I know in your notes it says June, it should be correct, it's got the July numbers. Fire incidents, we had 8. Unfire incidents for the year, we're up by 9, which is a big jump. And rescue incidents, we had 12 in the month of July, and we're down 20 actually here in the village for the year. And then ambulance call volumes, we had 34. And then for the year, we're down 31. Ambulance are here in the village with less rescue calls, and the other 11 would be due to Belgium's reduction in call volume as well. So,
Thank you, sir. Public Works.
You have my report. Go to the big things. I don't know if I had it in the report or not, was the pavilion at Stony Creek was painted, lights were added. Veterans was that, curb appeal, the concrete border was put in. I think, was that it for parks? Splash pads continuing, yeah, plumbing should be done tomorrow, and the electrician will be in on Monday to hook everything up. They pressure tested, everything seems to be working, so. Carrying on.
And just on the splash pad, because I've been asked a few times that, you know, summer's ending, so does that mean we're gonna cut the ribbon and then tell all the kids to go home? No. Our plan, assuming that it gets done here relatively soon, is we'll still do a ribbon cutting. We'll probably extend our first, you know, season of hours. Because yes, we'd hate for us to, you know, get all excited about it and then the kids can't use it till next year. So there will be a ribbon cutting to be determined dates, and we'll let kids use it, you know, at least for a month or so, depending on the weather. So be great.
Thank you. Clerk Johnson.
Our website migration has been delayed by at least 6 weeks. Wouldn't be surprised if that took a little bit longer. They're doing everybody over to the new platform, so they have a lot of clients they're handling. I finished my 3rd year of the Clerks Institute. It was a great opportunity to learn and network. I learned that most other small municipalities are kind of facing the same issues we are in terms of financing these larger public safety initiatives. And I came away from some of those conversations with exciting ideas to explore different and unique paths for funding large capital purchases. And I'm super bummed. I was waitlisted for the inaugural WEC convention. So I'm emailing them weekly. Hopefully I can move up that list and get on the team. So we'll see how that works out. Attorney Woodward is working on updating our alcohol ordinance to match Act 73. He took a brief look at it, and there's not a whole lot of work to do, but it was recommended that we do a little bit of tweaking. So that will come to you by the end of this year. And election officials are now eligible for certain protections under the public records law. So I'll be working with my team as we roll into the next election cycle to make sure that they know their options when it comes time. We have transitioned all of our outstanding commercial permits from Roger Keeson to our new commercial inspectors, Jeremy Pfeiffer and Ed Alexander. They've been great to work with so far, and they are already working hard for the village. John Derler is gearing up for retirement. We have a promising lead, but no guarantees. And we have plans for a new home in the Village Green subdivision, so that's exciting. And then all the other things, all the normal day-to-day operations of the village. Where's that new home called? It is right above, it's on North Milwaukee Street. There's one house. Yeah. Yeah. So there's one more buildable lot right above it. So fingers crossed, it's great.
We'll be seeing that.
Will we be seeing that at the planning commission?
So residential lots don't have to go before the planning commission. Yep. But if it's a commercial plan, you would see that.
Multifamily.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Village treasurer.
So during this past month, we started using the feature that Fort Washington State Bank has where it just helps with fraud control. It's called Positive Pay. It's things I've used at prior jobs, you know, it's like in case a check gets stolen and, you know, it's rewritten, there's certain criteria that you upload into the bank that, you know, pings against that data listing. So it's just remembering to load that file into the bank now. But that's going well. I did get some final information back from Baker Tilly. Wendy finally kind of answered most of my questions. I would say the satisfaction of some of those answers was less than stellar in my career dealings with. But I'll take whatever I could finally get out of them. I also gathered some quotes and we installed today a new postage meter, so will not have to keep running to the post office to buy stamps all the time. And in that, we also get discounted postage rates, so it will hopefully, the cost of the meter lease each month will be, savings with the postage. But we did get a really good deal, and I've worked with all three of the major players in my career. And the one we went with was actually the one I liked the most anyway. So I was pleased that, with that. So looking forward to being able to start a new postage meter. And that I attended the budget 101 meeting that Chris had the other week. And basically it's just, now kind of helping work on the 2026 budget and, getting some of that information together to help, file and everything, be a little more functional. So those are my highlights of past month.
Thank you. Wazaki County District 2 Supervisor. Mid-Moraine Municipal Association Designated Representative.
The next meeting will be this September 10th, I believe.
All right.
So I should have something to report on within the next couple of months.
All right, thank you. Items for action and or discussion. First item is discussion and possible action on potential simplified water rate increase for 2026. Administrator Jenkins, would you care to
Sure thing.
explain?
Hi, guys. They knew the perfect time to leave. All right.
Must be.
So, for those who don't know, our water utility is governed by the PSC, that's the Public Service Commission. If you want to increase your rates, there is a very lengthy process of doing a study and arguing for why you need to increase and do all that other stuff. The last time that the village has asked for a rate increase, it's got to be quite a while. So the other option is you could do what's called a simplified rate increase. So the PSC each year, based off of the numbers that we put out and based off of inflation, they say, all right, this year you're allowed to increase by this amount. So we did that 2 years ago. Our simplified rate amount was by 8%, and this body chose to enact that. And this year we're qualified and allowed to increase at 3%. So the 3% again isn't a lot of money, and it's not necessarily made to give us a lot of money. The whole purpose of it is just to keep up with inflationary costs. You do this so that way you don't have to come back, 10 years from now and jack things up 50% because you've been doing it little by little over time. So to illustrate this for you, I printed off a sheet that should be in front of you. It has sewer rates on it and water. We're going to just look at water right now. The way that your utility bill is calculated is you have a meter size. That's a base fee that we charge. And then you have a rate per 1,000 gallons. So that's called your volumetric rate. So whenever you get a water bill, that total amount is your meter rate plus your volumetric rate times the thousands of gallons that you use, right? So what you have listed here where it says that box of Fredonia, our current rates are where it says 2025. I highlighted the green 5/8 because that's a residential size. Yeah. Right. Yep. Yep. We're all following the sheet, bottom half. So green is the important one because that's your residents. So that's like, those are the people that you're impacting when you think about this. Everything beyond that is like a business, commercial use, manufacturing size. So a 3% increase would move the base meter rate from 2036 to 2097. And then it would move the volumetric rate down at the bottom there from 337 to 347. So you can see how that compares in other communities as you follow along the green bar there. You'll notice that some have higher size rates, but they have lower volumetric. Or they might have lower meter size and a higher volumetric, like Cedarburg, for example. Some do not have a variation in their different sizes. Some just have what's called a base rate. So that's why you see Cedarburg with one number and Saukville with one number. They just have a base rate that they charge, but they end up collecting a lot more through their volumetric rates. So I would argue that even with the 3% increase, we are still very competitive amongst our like-sized neighbors here. And again, just for keeping up with inflation and those costs, that's why we're recommending you to proceed. So what's on the docket tonight, it would be, if you were so inclined, a motion to approve this action, which would then cause us to go through Ellers. We would file the simplified rate increase application with the PSC, and then that would start effective January 1 of 2026.
Thank you. Discussion.
Looking at incomes and expenses, looks like we're in the positive. Is there elsewhere potentially that you could kind of put towards that, the inflation rate that we could, throw at the bills to not put it onto, the actual rate increase?
Yeah, so unfortunately, no, because utilities are separate. Remember, those monies cannot commingle with any other fund. So the monies that are raised here purely will go to water, just like we couldn't, I don't know, if the general fund had a surplus of money, we could have used that money to help support the water utility. It has to balance itself.
That basically our utilities, both our water and our sewer, are technically a business.
Correct.
Correct.
They're their own.
It's not a profitable business by
Yeah.
any means, but they are technically a business that we, as a service that we offer to our residents.
Mhm.
And so we need to ensure that we are looking at these rates, as Administrator Jenkins said, that we are covering our costs. And according to what I see right here, you said that even with this 3%, an estimated additional $12,211 annually.
Yep.
So we are just barely going to make ends meet, but of course, that's all going to change if we have an issue, right?
Issue or future, like a well addition or a tower. But just so you know, there's 6 years is the water tower supposed to,
Yes.
you take it offline and paint it inside and out. We're looking at, 6 figures for that. So we're just trying to make sure we're ready for it.
Mhm.
Cause I think they did the analysis last year, right? Estimated 5 to 7 years last year for the retaining.
Yep.
And there's no circumstance whatsoever or to pull money from elsewhere, or you have to have a separate approval to move funds?
Yeah, you can't pull money from here to use in another fund, just like you can't do it the other way. What our best practice has been, so I'll jump to sewer here quick. So this year, when we bumped the rate up the first time, we didn't really have a change in our expenses. We pocketed a lot of that money into our reserves in order to build up our capital reserve fund, our replacement fund. There's 2 reasons you do that. 1, because you should always be saving for a rainy day. And 2, you should also build that up because when you eventually do a borrowing ask, like for a future wastewater treatment plant, we need to show that we have significant capital and funds aside in order to get a better bond interest rate. Just like when you go to get a mortgage, right? If you have a larger down payment, you can get a better rate for your loan that you're trying to do. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the reasoning behind it.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to approve the potential or the simplified water rate increase for 2026.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all of those in favor of the increase?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? The ayes have it. Next item on the agenda, discussion and possible action on potential sewer rate increases for 2026 and 2027. Administrator Jenkins.
All right, this one's a little bit more meatier. So I'm actually going to start with this print off. They should have here in front of you. And for those that were on the board, this should look familiar. We looked at this in spring. So what this is a list of all of the possible options that we can do with the wastewater treatment plant upgrade to come. At this point, our engineers at Strand have been building out plans throughout the year for, I would say, numbers 1 through 4 there, the highest priority rankings as the base project. And then everything else after that are alternates. So what that means is when we go out to bid and we get a winning bidder, they'll give prices to all these, and then we can really pick and choose which ones we want to end up doing. Which that, again, the board at the time thought that was a valuable tool, and that's what we're planning on doing. So what you see here before you is it's ranked, you see the project, you see the function, you see the reason why, and then you see the estimated cost along with the timeline. Again, I'll preface all of this with the word estimated. These are estimated costs. We're not going to know until we go out to bid, just like the estimated rate increases that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. So that's the first part of this. We've been building up to doing this wastewater treatment plant upgrade since at least our team has been like 2023, I would think. With the plan on executing this in 2027, maybe 26, depending on the market and what's going on. So, but in order to get there, in order for us to be able to expend possibly $6 million some dollars, we would go through the Clean Water Fund loan through the state. The benefit of doing that is that we get a 10% principal reduction on it. So again, instead of $6 million, it might be 5.2, right? So we get principal forgiveness through that. But in order to qualify, you need to show that you have enough income to not only cover your regular expenses, but then to also cover the fullness of the loan plus 10%. So when Ellers was here in the past, they talked about that 1.1 number. You need to show that you have at least enough income coming to cover 1.1% or 110%, there you go, of your operating costs. And so in order for us to get there, this body had a couple options. You could have jacked up rates 86% that first time we talked about it, or you could have said, well, we actually want to break this out over time. That's what the decision was by your predecessors, and we're in the middle of doing that right now. So in spring of this year, this body approved a 21.4% increase that was effective January 1 of this year. And now what we're asking for is the next step for 2026, and then there'll be another inevitable ask in 2027. I know your agenda talks about 2027. We don't really need to know that exact number right now. Because what's going to end up happening is we'll go out to bid, we'll find out what those projects are, we'll find out how much we need to spend. And it might be that, you know what, we don't need to increase rates anymore. Or maybe the amount that we need to increase is just a little bit more than what we thought. So I don't want you to blindly say, yes, Chris, just go ahead and increase 44% because we can. While I would love for you to do that, that's not a fiscally responsible decision to do. So right now, again, we're just trying to build up that amount of money so that when we get to the point of borrowing, we have enough capital to do it. So again, if you look at this handy dandy sheet that I showed here, and we look at the sewer side, it's the same thing that we talked about with the water. You have your meter sizes, and then you have your rates per gallon. You can see what our current rates are under 2025 and what they would be with the estimated 22% increase. And then you can see what all of our nearby villages and townships are doing. And you'll notice it's the same thing. Some of them are a lot higher in their meters and lower in their volumetric costs. Some are vice versa. Some just have base rates. It really just depends on that municipality, how they do their billing and what they're paying for. A good example from our neighbor here, Belgium, just did a remodel back in, or a new one is 2021, 2020.
Somewhere.
Yeah. And so one of the reasons, if you look at theirs and say, wow, theirs is considerably higher than ours. Well, yeah, because they had to fund an upgrade just like we are, right? And so they're kind of like the aftermath of what that looks like. And we're just kind of in the middle of where we're at. So again, I'll preface that this is estimated. All we're asking for tonight is just guidance and consensus from you all, like a shaking of heads that will move then to the next phase, which is working with Ellers on that exact amount. And we'd come back before you with an actual resolution that says starting January 1st, 2026, this is going to be the rate amount. And we'll have, again, that data behind it to know how much that is. If you would like us to start crafting 2027, again, I said you don't have to do that, and that might not be financially responsible to do it, but you could direct me right now to say, well, Chris, just do 2027 too. We'll just get it done all in one swoop. That's fine too, but you know, again, the options are up to you on what you want to do. So I think I've talked enough. I'm trying to give you a high level explanation and you guys can go from there.
So I have a question, where are we at, Strand, and the drawings and ready to go out to bid?
They are actually going to be here at our next meeting, presenting to you all the results of kind of what those drawings are going to look like, what the projects are going to be. As far as the bidding timeline, I think we're looking at January, right?
Can I get a copy of the drawing?
Sure. Yeah, you did. Yeah, so January is when we were planning on going out to bid. And then we could choose the project timeline after that. If we want them to start this year or in 2026, or if we want to push to 2027, we can make it.
Because again, these are all estimates that we calculated last year. If
Yep.
you remember this
Yep.
exact same numbers.
Mhm.
So considering how expensive things are going, these could be well below what we actually are going to get, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And what's the current lead time for some of the things on here? We're
18
talking-
months.
Yeah, 18 months. So regardless, even if we go out to bid and we assign a bidder, we're not going to have anything done with this until 2027, anyway, correct?
Yep.
So I don't know if we're gonna be able to start in 2026. Well, maybe some of it.
Yep.
Construction purposes, but.
Yeah, depends on the contractor and their
Yeah.
availability.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you had done an analysis last year about what type of information this was going to look at, but I mean, we were saying scary numbers of like 70 or 80%. We looked at what was that actually going to, how that was actually going to affect our residents and how much you kind of looked at an average household and
Yeah.
broke it down, like how much in addition it would be per month. Refresh my memory.
Yeah, I was
How
just,
much that, I have like $130 a year.
yeah, I was just
in my
talking to
head, so it'd be
Todd.
like under $11 a month
Yeah,
in
do you
addition
do that same meal?
rate increase.
Yeah, we just asked for that updated information from Todd today. Todd's our financial advisor. Let me look at that here.
So I mean, we're
Yes.
saying scary numbers like this, 22, 44, 60, some. Yeah,
So the,
we're saying that's a scary number, but when you actually break it down to, the percentages are, a little,
Misinformative.
yeah,
Yeah.
misinformed. I mean, you see 65% and you think it's going to be this ginormous number, but it's really actually not. In the scheme of things, we're talking.
Yeah.
A little,
yeah, so I,
$10 of change.
yeah, I have that right here and you're pretty good. You remember. So,
Good. I-
so over 3 years, because again, this is a 3-year increase, the average annual increase was 172.29. Then quarterly, it's 43.07, and then monthly, it's $10.77. So that's what you're getting.
$10.77.
Yeah, so that's again, that's the effect.
House
Yeah.
increase per month.
Yeah.
And that's what if we went with the full 65-70%.
Yep.
Okay.
And keep in mind that we are not enacting this tonight. We're just asking for guidance, asking for it to be looked into more seriously. Any other discussion?
Are you saying that we don't need to do the 3 different installments?
No, I'm saying that right now we're just looking at the second. We already did one of them last year.
We did the first, we're looking at the second one. We're maybe going to wait on the third one until next year when we know what the prices are
Yes.
better. Because that way, instead of committing ourselves to another 20% for the following year, it might only have to be 12% because of the way the
Well,
bids
and it
come in.
also
So,
going to determine how much we bid.
right,
Because depending on what they come back, this $6 million could end up being $8 million pretty
Right.
easily in today's.
So we weren't expecting the third year
Yes,
to be similar to the other
we
two.
were expecting it,
yes.
but we don't know, we won't know until we go out to bid, and that won't be until next year.
So we won't be able to really make a determination on that third year. Probably, we expected it to be roughly the same, but it might be a little more, it might be a little less.
Or definitely be fiscally irresponsible too.
do it early.
Yeah, to do it
Yeah.
early. But we definitely need to start looking at it next year, 2026, because it's going to take Ellers a little bit of time to do their analysis and then present it to us, and we're already in August, so. I would
Trustee
say that
Siri?
we need to move forward with having them look at the analysis of the initial proposed 22%.
You were gonna say?
Yeah, I mean, I'd also like to know how much we began to put away with that initial increase before we go and determine another increase.
My
How much have we
understanding,
began to put away for that?
my understanding is that that first increase was basically to get us up to where we should be.
Yeah.
Because
That
in
was
the
last year.
past decades, there have not been much in the way of increases at all to compensate for.
That was already done last year, so this is, we're talking about.
No, I know, but we were talking about last.
Oh,
year's.
yeah, last year.
Yes.
Yes, that
Yes.
was to make it so that we were actually breaking even.
That was based off of the year before's operating costs. Have
Yes.
this year's operating costs been lower where we've actually been turning a profit now with that initial increase? Right now to start putting money into that fund.
Well-
We have to find out.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at my handy dandy sheet here that summarizes stuff. Let's see, 5, 6. Water fund, hold on, I gotta read my tiny print too.
Which is the first
Yeah.
line income. So that's 440,000 roughly, and then year-to-date expenses on the sewer is 644. Is that,
439, 644. Yes, but keep in mind that our billing is always behind by a quarter, so I'm sure there's incomes there that we're missing. So when I look at like our budget to actuals, which is the report that I look at each time, I mean, I'm not concerned. We already budgeted putting away some money into our capital reserves. So yes, we're balancing on our books, right? Their argument when Ellers came in was when you look at insurance costs and payroll and things like that, our current rates weren't going to meet that demand as they continue to go up. So that 21.4% allowed us to kind of break even there. And then any additional growth in percentages was for the upcoming bonding we'd be doing.
We have an amount of operating that's involved in that number? Or is it all money that we're receiving? Banking?
Which numbers?
Are you talking about the 21.4% from last one?
Is that all money that we're saving, accumulating to get the whole 10%?
No, the 21.4% was to get us to where we're paying our bills and not running in the
Do you have
red.
an answer?
No, you're gonna,
Is that correct?
that 21.4% got us to where we needed to be, plus takes into account that 10% buffer that we need for that bond, if we go out to bid for that bonding package. So it got us
So there is a
there
little bit.
and accounts for a portion of that 10% to get us to that percentage that the Clean Water Fund uses.
So that part of it would be operating expense.
So part of it is operating
Right,
expense, yeah.
right. You can't get ahead unless you get enough to get ahead.
Right.
Any other discussion? At this point, since we're not committing to spending any money, I think it would be wise to instruct the staff to pursue determination of exactly what we're gonna need to do for this upcoming increase. How much would make sense?
Yep. So we'll come back with a resolution and you'd want it just for 2026.
Just for 2026? Any
Okay.
debate on that? All right, just for 2026.
Sound good?
All right.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, discussion and possible action on a potential update to the village's home occupation ordinance sponsored by trustee Van Root. And it's up to you.
Yeah, so this proposal, to make it boil it down very simply. It takes a lot of red tape off. It kind of gives people a right of use to attempt to start and do something within their home. There is recourse if there are issues, and there's guidelines to follow, as you guys will be able to look over and see. But I think it's really important, especially if we want to grow and be inviting to, especially the younger crowd. It's important to have more of a hands-off approach to this. I think, the older people are, I think the less they realize how bad it is for the 30 and under crowd right now. And just having an opportunity, even for high school kids, college kids, younger families that, they're working hard, maybe they want to start something on the side. I think it's really important and it's very attractive for people to have, the opportunity, because it's my understanding there's not a ton of communities in the area that are super hands off of that stuff. So, again, this would be a really good avenue to at least, have a trial, let people do their thing. And again, if there are issues, if there are people that their neighbors that have an issue with it, if they're violating codes, all they have to do, come in, file a complaint with a few signatures, and then, people investigate it. We look into it. We determine, is this an issue? Is it not? Go from there. So I think it's a pretty safe approach to at least allow people to try, to really grow financially in the village.
Yeah, great. Did you want me to take it over?
I think, yeah, we're
Sure.
kind of walk us through the little fine details here.
Sure. So just so the board knows, right now, our language around home occupations is pretty minimal. It has, it says what's allowed, and it's very much, what's the word?
Archaic.
Archaic, right? Things like babysitting and millinery and dressmaking and
All my favorite hobbies.
all Michelle's favorite things. And so, there's definitely an argument to be made that we probably need to, address this in one way or another. So we looked at a few different communities, and the one that we ended up mocking off of was Grafton. And Grafton does allow home occupation by right. So that means by the right of you owning a home and having a residence, you just get to do a home occupational business in your home. But there are stipulations around what you can and can't do, and what are the regulations around it. And so that's what they list here. So I just wanted to walk you through little by little, and maybe let's just talk about each topic. Tonight, I think it'd just be valuable to get general feedback. If there's things that you absolutely, don't like and you want to change, I'd rather you tell us now than, 4 meetings from now. And if there's things that you love and you want to keep it in here, then that's great guidance too. And then what will happen is we'll then move this to the plan commission and goes through that process, and it'll come back for the village board for your process. So this definitely won't be the last time that you'll see it. All that to be said, you could also tell trustee Van Roo to pound sand, no respect, disrespect. If you just say, I don't like this at all, and I just want to do something different, we could do that too. So Shane, did you have a comment? Yep.
I will say, I was kind of looking at comments from,
Yep.
it attorney?
Yep.
I don't like the language low intensity business. I don't think I wanted that in there, so I don't know where that was exactly, but I mean, I don't really think we need to restrict it, what do you call it? Figuratively, to be
Okay.
super low intensity, especially if we're in a home. I don't think you have to worry about 50 employees in a home, so just wanted to throw it out there.
Okay, so let's start with G. So that's the definition here. It says that economic activities performed within a residential dwelling unit. Examples include personal and professional services, handicrafts, and retail conducted online. Home occupations are intended to provide a means to accommodate a small, home-based family or professional business without the necessity of a rezoning from a residential to a business district. So again, the theory behind this is it's still a residence, it's still primarily a home, and this is just a substandard use of the property. It's going to be the home occupation. It goes on to say home occupations are limited to low-intensity businesses and are permissible by right in all residential zoning districts. So that's the by right there. The reason why it says low intensity, to answer your question there, is because we're trying to define that it's not like a gas station, right, where people keep going in and out nonstop. So you want to say, the reason why that's in here is the low intensity definition is meant to show that there's just a lesser volume of traffic going in and out of the property that's in a possibly residential neighborhood or anything like that.
And we would have to define that using words
And we could,
in the code.
but I think trustee Van Roo is suggesting to not have that there at all and be open to any type of business. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, because then you don't need to set the standard and honestly, again, if there are complaints, well, will we look into it if there's an actual issue there within our code? If it's not in our code and it doesn't violate anything and it's not a major disruption, there's no,
But if we don't have it in the code, how can it be against the code? I mean, if somebody files a complaint
that's what I'm
and there's
saying.
nothing in the code that says it needs to be low intensity, it needs to be low traffic, then there's no reason, you can say, well, too bad, pound sand, you just have to deal with the fact that there's 75 cars driving down your street every hour to go to this business.
Well, and that's what I'm wondering too, it's that we need to almost have it in the code because
Yeah,
what you might consider not a nuisance or annoying might
So-
be different from what I think is a nuisance. And
Yeah,
yeah, so I think we need to have some sort of verbiage. in
I'd
there.
like to direct you to number 7. There shall be no restriction on customer, client, or commercial traffic or deliveries. So it's in there. There shouldn't be a restriction. So
so there should be, but this says there shall be no restriction.
that's what I'm saying. We had it in there. There shall be no
So
restriction.
you're saying that should be changed?
No.
No.
This is what he wrote. So this is the ordinance that trustee Van Roo drafted.
Right.
And then he's asking for your feedback on.
So now that low intensity business, that's going against what we're trying to do here, essentially.
And so you want to strike that.
Essentially what you two are saying, I would probably agree with number 7, traffic, we need to actually put a number there. Because there cannot be no restrictions in the residential zones. We can't just, again, it would stop somebody from running any business they want. And as long as it stays within the noise levels of the village, they can do what they want and they can have as many cars parked on the street and in their driveway. And it just causes more conflict for potential
I have an,
violations with
Yep.
residents and
And,
law enforcement.
And you could probably define them more too, but like there's an item number
and
10.
honestly, that no limit to the amount of employees within a home base, I mean.
Because the original one said like no more than 1 or 2 employees. Well, what if I start a business with my 4 buddies? I can't have all 4 of them there at the same time?
But I think we need to have some established limits, because what if they wanna do a home business with 50 employees? Where are they gonna?
How's that gonna work?
People are gonna try, trust me, people will try. They try all
The-
kinds of different things, but I think we need to have some like under 10 or something a little bit more. We do have to have some sort of, we can't just have no limits to any of this, because this is a residential business. We're not trying to limit our residents' ability to make a living and do things, but at the same time, if they've got 10 people coming and going, and what if it's one of the residential streets that has limited parking to begin with? Where are all these people going to park, and what about our residents? And they're not. Since it's a home-based business, they can have different work hours, and so we might be, what's the word I'm thinking of? Not annoying, but we might be displacing, we might be, adding additional pressure to our actual residents because of this. So we need to have some sort of structure and some sort of limitations. I'm not saying that the old one is antiquated and needed to be expanded. So we can look at the old one and the 1 or 2 employees. Okay, yeah, that's not reasonable. But maybe 10 employees, sure, okay. Limited number of cars, the traffic, et cetera, because it's a small residential area, and I'm thinking of the cul-de-sac right next to me that has constant kids on the cul-de-sac playing constantly. Do you want a stream of 50 car, 100 cars just going to that back and forth between that business because the kids are out there? That's a residential concern for public safety.
Yeah.
So we need to have some sort of restriction.
And the other hard part too is how do you enforce that? If you put some restriction on, you can only have 5 cars in your lot, things like that. So it's hard, but there are things like how much of your residence you can use, there's nuisance.
Then if there was a complaint, we would have something that we could go back to and enforce. But the way that some of these are written, there's no restrictions, and there's a way of actually allowing the administrator, the clerk, or Marshall Lee to actually enforce anything.
And keep in mind, if we were to establish, say, a maximum of 10 employees. And a home business is expanding a little bit, well, they could expand into a business location and have a commercial business, but if they wanted to have 12 people coming into their residence, they could appeal it to the Board of Appeal. They could come and ask permission for an exception that, these are our rules, but we can bend or change things depending on
Then you make
situation.
rules. What we're trying to do is create the future.
Right.
Can't do that. You'll never be able to create a future that will work. Because this is the United States just doesn't work that way. It's a capitalistic system. People build better mousetraps. Some of them do it in their basement, some of them do it in a great big, whatever. You'll never be able to write the future. What we need is to have something with an element, an experiential element contained in it.
Okay.
So that as the ordinance goes, it's wide open, they can do whatever, it's right, we can do whatever. Now, this right is tied to a certain set of experiences, and they can be from here to the moon and back. Experiences, common sense, whatever. If you've got 10 people that want to come and pick up something at the house that you make or something, so you get 10 people that come in during the day, and they come and pick one up and jabber for a little bit, and then go home.
Well,
That's not a lot of people.
but we're not talking about customers. We're talking about employees here. We're talking
How
about
do you
people.
know you're not talking about customers? We don't know that. See, you're writing the future to see the only thing that's gonna use is our customers.
I do want to point out too, like the main point of this, although there's small details you can add and change and to clarify some things. The main point is there's an opportunity, a right to try, and whether it's clearly defined or not, let's say there is issues, there are complaints, that can be open to review, and based on that review and what is determined, that can set precedent as we go as well. But again, it's just allowing the opportunity for people to try without trying to put all these little red tape things on, because I think for the most part, people, especially a small startup business, I don't think you're gonna have issues like that, especially for quite some time until you get to the point where, 3 years down the line, maybe they do have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 employees or whatever the case may be. But again, there is a process to review. And even if it's not specifically spelled out, I think, because in some of these things that are in the language here, floor use, percentage, what else we got? We got level of noise, nuisance. I don't know what exactly is defined in level of noise and nuisance, but it's in these different codes. So I think it's kind of open interpretation and, I guess, you can set that precedent.
Honestly, I agree, this needs to be done. I agree wholeheartedly.
We just gotta
rewrite this.
Figure out how to do it.
I'm on board with rewriting this. I just think that we need to look at it a little bit closer and actually make sure that we are including some sort of structured restrictions so that we can enforce things. And I want a small business, if they've got 5 employees, I want them to grow to the point where they need to buy a lot or buy a building and build something in
Yeah,
a rural area. I want that for them. But we also do need to look at it from a standpoint of our community and the residents around that business and give them something that, because what's annoying to me is not annoying to you, and what's annoying to you is not annoying to me. So we need to have some sort of structure. So the no restrictions, that's the part where I've got a little bit of concern about, but I love what you've done here, and I love the fact that we are going to do this for our village residents. But we just need the no restrictions, just kind of rubs me just a little bit wrong.
And you're talking specifically like the traffic?
I'm just talking about anything where you've got like no restrictions and no,
The brick walls,
yeah,
Trustee Searing?
yeah, it's
When's,
just,
prior to this last resident, when's the last time we had a resident turned down for a home business from?
So we have home occupational businesses and then we have zoning permits.
Yep.
So these are two different things.
So, I mean,
So,
how recently we
yep.
had a resident come
Yep.
for a zoning permit that got fine. Prior to that, can you recall the last time we had a resident come?
No,
So I feel like we're trying
generally our rule of thumb, and even if you adopted this, our rule of thumb is that, we're not, if we don't know, right, we're not gonna care until a
Right.
complaint comes in and there's an issue, and then we might visit and say, what's going on? Yep.
with businesses that we just don't know about.
But prior to this
Yeah.
last resident,
Not in my time here, I don't think.
so I mean, are we turning a drop of water into a waterfall right now by dealing with it, like dealing with this for one resident who maybe probably didn't come to the board directly with the way he was planning on doing his hobby business out of his house or whatever he might have been. Is this turning into something where we're gonna just? I like the idea of residents being able to do stuff at home, but again, even with the levels of noise above normal levels, well, what's normal level? My neighbors have crying babies and I hear them inside my house when my windows are open, so is that normal level for a business next
different
door?
neighborhoods have different.
And this is already pre-existing language regardless and community. So I don't know what that, like I said, I don't know what that clearly defined is. I don't know if you can put a clear definition on it, or is it consensus determination case by case? But I don't see how opening up that opportunity would be necessarily a waterfall of issues.
Well, no.
Because
I'm
it's
saying-
clearing the path. It's basically given the right to try. There is recourse, like, hey, let's.
No, I'm saying,
you know.
are we taking something that hasn't really been an issue for our residents in however many years since Chris has been here? This was the first residence that's come with this before the board. Are we taking something that hasn't been an issue already and just opening an issue because we want to see a change?
I would argue
wouldn't be
no.
a bit surprised if we didn't have 20-25 businesses operating in the village right now that we don't know.
I'm sure we do.
And fire department doesn't know about how much chemicals do they have, and the police don't know about it, who's coming back and forth as to latest. I'd like to be able to regulate this to a point where we actually know what's going on in the village. And I don't want to frighten people who want to do things and say, well, if I go in and ask for permit, they're just gonna say no. That's a bad situation. Come in and we'll help you do what you wanna do it the right way, that kind of thing.
And that's kind of the point of this too, is not that we don't need to know, but again, it's just kind of clearing the way for like, hey, like. Whatever you do, it's not really like a concern until there is an actual issue with complaints that need to be looked into. Cause then they don't need to keep it under the table, don't need to worry about, oh, is there gonna be consequences? You have the right to try. You have the right, as long as you're following these rules. These basic rules we have laid out. And again, if there are valid complaints, it's gonna be very easy for that to be reviewed and determined by, would it be the planning commission or what?
Sorry, I'm looking something up in our code.
Yeah,
Right.
we have
It goes to planning commission after the complaint, correct?
So what you've written in the ordinance, the appeals process would go to the zoning administrator and then to the planning commission.
Yeah.
But with this loose wording that we have right now, a person would still have zero reason to come and apply for a permit. Because the wording is so loose that even if they are doing it under the table and they get caught, there's really no consequence because there's no rules.
That's the point.
And trustees.
Well, that's what I'm saying, so they still wouldn't need a permit, so they're still gonna operate, they, just like 25 residents are potentially.
So under the way that this is written, there is no permit to provide.
That's the
Right.
point.
Right, so even if there's 25 residents doing it right now, who cares?
Right.
Cause they're not hurting us until they get a call from.
It's
So-
been-
But right now, they don't have a right to do
It
it
is,
technically.
this is bottled after.
Which means if there's a problem,
that was
if there's
the
a
base.
noise complaint or
Oh.
something like that, marshals can do something.
So dumb.
Without this.
They still
If
can do
that was
something.
in place, he would still be taking his, bring his.
Can you help me find something?
Cause you could easily, okay, if there is an issue, you know, whether it's a suspension or a probation on something, or hey, this can't be in the village, like that would be determined by the planning commission. And that decision could be easily enforced by a marshal. Oh, you can't do your, whatever business in your yard. Well, if the marshal drives by and sees it in his yard, he can tell him, hey, you're not allowed to do this. Same thing with inside, if there's observable traffic coming in and out with products, that's something easily that can be shut down.
But with this, there's no.
There's no way to
restriction.
shut it down.
What do you mean, there's no restriction?
You just, it says there shall be no restrictions on customers, clients, or commercial traffic or deliveries.
Correct, what I'm saying is, if there's a determination. Hey, this is a direct clear violation, or whatever the case may be. You can't do this.
But a violation of what? If this says there's no restriction, I could have trucks dropping off tons of things
Correct.
at 3 a.m. And when my neighbor complains, it says there are no restrictions. My neighbor
There are
doesn't have, there isn't. It says right here, there are no restrictions. My neighbor
This is
doesn't
a
have,
draft. This is a-
I know it's a draft, but, that's the point. We need to refine the draft. And what we're talking about is the fact that some of the language in here is so broad and so, let's call it vague, that there would be no control. It does need to be refined. This is a good approach. We do need to do something. But it does need to have,
But if there is
More detail.
if there is something in here, for example, level of noise outside of normally associated with the use, so is there normally dump trucks being loud at 3 a.m. in the morning?
Yeah.
There's, huh?
Oh, no, I'm just thinking about the
Yeah, it's-
newer trucks that drive 24/7 in front of my house. So yes, every 20 minutes I have a newer truck occasionally driving.
Well, in that case,
And that's considered, that's a nuisance. For me, at least down Cedar Valley Road.
Administrator Jenkins.
All right, I have some guidance for you. So the way our code currently reads, okay, is we can issue zoning permits, or I can issue zoning permits. And a zoning permit is for all non-residential uses, so commercial, industrial, whatever, household occupations and cottage industries. And right now, our definition of household occupations is very finite, right? It's only those small womanhood skill sets that we're allowed. So that's where yeah, so that's where arguably we should probably change something in our code, because chances are people aren't doing that, and they're probably doing other things too. And so right now, if somebody came in and like Mr. Lopez, and he wanted to do a CNC business in his house, if I look at this definition here of household occupations and what he can do in his home, I would have to deny him. I have no choice but to not give him a zoning permit. And so his other option would be, well, can I get a conditional use? Well, the only conditional uses that are allowed in residential homes are things like nursing homes, or I forget what the other, greenhouses and things like that. So my point is that what we have right now is maybe too finite. And I agree with Trustee Frank that the language here provides a structure for what we could be, what we can look for in the future. It's just a matter of the details, right, and how you want to word that. So I would say, again, just to save time, so we're not here till 9 o'clock. What I'm hearing is there's things like the home occupation of employees, the amount of employees, the traffic, I believe, was one that I heard. And you guys haven't discussed the maximum floor area, but I would like to hear about that too. And if those are areas that you would like us to look at clearer and maybe provide some options to the plan commission when they discuss it, then we can do that too. So that way it comes back to you in as a clearer document.
Guidelines.
Yep.
That helps the planning, or it goes to a noise complaint, or it goes to some sort of complaint. Because we know some of our residents will
carry it too far.
carry it too far and will badger our poor clerk.
I don't mind at all.
But it's in the zone. I would say it's in the zoning code, so then I'll have to go pay a visit. Yeah, yeah.
Remove
Mhm.
our antiquated ordinance about home businesses, because that is so old. You didn't write that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm giving you a hard time.
No, they haven't changed that since I.
But we do need to have some open to some interpretation, so that we do have a way of enforcing, way of resolving residential concerns.
I do have,
Trustees
Just
have
like
room?
with the chickens, that's great, just like with the chickens, we need to have.
Yeah, because this is a proposal. You very seldom see an ordinance come for a vote without having at least one or two or 9 or 10 or
Yeah.
15
Right.
proposals per year.
Yeah.
Or this is.
So I agree with the start. This is a really great start. I just think we need to fine tune some of the verbiage.
and we need to provide some direction with the changes we want to make, correct?
That would be ideal if you can.
So I have two,
Trustee Siri, if you have some. Okay.
I have two questions that could probably clear up some of the issues that you guys are talking about. One, I initially kind of had it in there, but we scratched it. Could something like a simple hours of operation be easy, like a, hey, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. or whatever? Whatever the exact number, but that would solve a lot of issues potentially.
That would, I mean, I don't want to necessarily that restricted, but. 6 a.m. to. I don't know.
6 to 6, something like that.
So cleaning of things at your house, maybe you had your maids come and pick up the vacuums and the cleaning supplies. That's something I did when I was in college. And, we had a certain pickup time, we had a schedule, and she tried to stagger it, so we weren't always all coming to pick up our supplies at the same time. But a lot of us, it was 2 people, and we would switch off who's talking each time. And I mean, I don't know how many, people even do that sort of thing anymore. If they, have run businesses like that, but I mean, there was, that scenario, and I mean, there was about 12 of us who cleaned. And sometimes 4 cars would be still there for the duration of our clean, whether we had 1 house or 3 houses.
Yeah, and I don't think necessarily 6 to 6 would work, because a lot of these people have regular full-time jobs they're doing elsewhere.
I think,
They're working in the evening hours.
It's
I think we
pretty
need-
busy.
I think we need to not worry about the specific details yet. A time frame might be a good addition to this. What was the other idea that you had?
My other question, instead of trying to say this many employees or this much traffic at once, could you propose some sort of like combined, what do you call it, occupancy, or like how many people can be there at once? So like you can have no more than 10 combined, 10, 20 combined people on your premises at one time, or some objective numbers, so you don't have to worry about 50 employees or customers showing up.
Right, and that could certainly be something that we look at too. I think this starting as a framework can be adapted with some of these ideas that you're putting out here. Do you have something you've been
Well, I
tracking?
was like, about the number of people you could have, I mean, I have more than that when I have a party.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
But
there's 40 cars parked down the
And they're
street,
on the middle of the road.
35 people in my house.
But that's not on a daily basis or even a weekly basis. And so, I mean, that kind of gets to the difference there. I mean, I have especially during COVID, I have the Divine Savior having their fish fry drive-through coming up my street, and I've got 500 cars driving along my little side street. I can't get into my house. I can't get out of my house. It's not happening every day, though. It's happening 3
They're
times.
putting it
a
in
month.
dollars.
Yeah, right.
The only other question I had, maybe I misheard you, but did you say if he would have applied for that permit in a different way, he would have had no choice but to grant it? Or
No,
did
I was saying that there's no way for me to grant it. There's no path
Oh.
forward. Because he doesn't define as a household occupation, he doesn't define as a conditional use. And the only way, again, regardless of your opinion, a CNC machine is generally used in manufacturing, right? And so if I look for manufacturing, it's only allowed in our manufacturing districts. So aside from him rezoning his residential property to a manufacturing zoning,
Or
I
calling it
can, yeah.
hobby use and then.
Yeah. So, but my point is that there is no path forward for him.
And-
And one, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, for him, he's a perfect example because of the initial, that's what initially sparked it, but it's like, now it's okay. You can do it, you can try it, and if there are issues, we'll hear about it, because your neighbors can easily file a complaint, so. It's pretty straightforward process with that.
Yes, so I think it's fair. Let's just look into refining with our conversation, some of the language, bring it back to us.
So it'll go to Plan Commission next if you're comfortable with that. They'll have a couple stabs at it, and then you'll see a cleaner version of it by the time it comes back to you.
So I would say that we could
Could.
do work and
Yep.
bring it back to this body, because by the time it gets to the plan commission, it should be substantially what this body wants to see.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Cause we, when it comes back to them, it would already have gone through the public hearing.
I got you.
It would be more.
We
appropriate to
could
do
be
that work.
working on this for,
But could
Yeah.
I?
What's that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so, are we happy? So for me, the main change that I look at when I see this is the right of use, right? So trustee Gore, you had said you'd like to kind of lightly regulate that, which we already do via a zoning permit. This would change that. We wouldn't regulate at all unless we hear that there's something, unless we hear that, there's a sourdough person making sourdough bread.
yeah, they could do another way of.
Yeah, so it's a right of use of their property instead of coming to us and requesting a permit. So we're satisfied with that path forward.
Which is in Grafton and Mequon, correct? They have ready use?
I don't remember all the details, but Grafton is the one that we based it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would help them to behave a little better, but it would crimp us, it put a crimp in our ability to regulate.
And then,
No, there's an answer in there.
Yeah.
I'm sure we put our heads together and I shut up once, we could come to a good agreement.
Maybe we could also hear how Pawtucket County and Marshall's have had to deal with violations or complaints about a system like this.
And
Yeah.
power on
Yeah, it doesn't, when it's a zoning violation, it doesn't go through a law enforcement. It's typically a building inspector or zoning administrator that would handle that. But we did ask some of the other communities, and I mean, overall, for those that have this right of use, they're like, it's not an issue until there's an issue, right? And then they have, again, guidelines in place to know when to police. So to get to Clerk Johnson's point, right now, if your next door neighbor started a laundry business or something next door, okay, and you had let's say you weren't happy about that, and you came into Village Hall and said, hey, my neighbor is starting a laundry business, then technically I should go out there and knock on their door and say, hello, ma'am, apparently you're running a business in your house, and it sounds like you need a zoning permit, but if it doesn't fit within our limited definition of what's allowed, well, then she might not even be able to be doing that in the first place, right? And so the right of use thing is, do you want us to police that overall, or do you just want it to be a right of use and it's none of our business until it is, right? That's the difference.
That's gonna be the nut to crack.
Yep. And we've seen, and to your point, we've seen that in other communities where it's a right of use and they move on and
Yeah.
it's just fine.
so I have some fun facts from
Oh, yeah.
Grafton, if anybody is interested in hearing them. So I asked if a home occupation permit was ever denied, and they've never denied a home occupation. They allow them by right. They don't have an application. They just don't pay attention to it until there is a complaint, and they look into it on a case-by-case basis. There's no committee or staff oversight, and they've never had a problem.
I think they use the rest of their ordinance
Right.
to enforce
That's right.
somebody not behaving.
So they have a really firm set of guidelines for both staff and residents so that the definition of a home occupation is very clear for everyone, right? And so if there is something that, that the building inspector or the zoning administrator needs to go out, they go out with their handy list of restrictions, and if there's a violation, then they deal with it then. So they don't care until they care. It seems to be very successful.
So as far as this draft, I'm hearing we'll have some sort of occupancy guideline on here. And again, not just employees, like you were saying, but an occupancy of the building. On traffic, I mean, do you guys have a feeling of how you want that to read? Do you want so many cars? Do you want?
I think that occupancy kind of takes care of it. If there's X amount of people allowable, there can only be so many cars.
Okay, but there could be,
So,
let's say there could be deliveries, there could be, I don't know, depending on the business, there could be parked cars there still, even if the people aren't in the home. I'm just trying to think. I mean, if you guys want to keep it with no limits, just
Well,
there's no
the
limit.
problem with the traffic is you still have down at, level 7 where it says no restriction on customers. So if they are running a clothing business out of their house or something and they have customers coming in and out all day, they could have the cars parked up front at any given moment. And we could say there's a restriction on the amount of employees you have. They might have 2 employees at the shop, but they might have 75 customers in there at that time.
So yeah, you'd cap it.
No, that's what he's asking.
Yeah.
So that's what he's saying. How do we restrict that?
So in Grafton, I'm trying to remember, I think theirs was 5. Did anybody remember? In the original?
I think I could have sworn we were based this off of Mequon, so I don't remember what the graph
I
did.
think I said Mequon by accident. So you're remembering right,
Okay.
but then I looked back and this is from Grafton.
Okay.
we had a person that did their graduation and the camera work and stuff at her home. And during times in the year, she'd have 30, 40 people showing up during the day, every day. Everybody's at an appointment, take the graduation picture, wedding picture, whatever. And there was really no complaint. They had to drive it in, pull in the driveway, park in the street.
Yeah. So while Michelle's looking for that, my other question is about the area. So there's a maximum floor area, and then later on it talks about the display, I believe. Wherever that is. Oh yeah, the sale and display of commodities and goods. So both of these right now are at 50%. So keep in mind, you for sure do not want to go over 50% because then you no longer have a primary residential use. And now more than 50% of it is now operating as a commercial or whatever it is. And so that would throw it out of commercial or out of residential zoning. But my question is, are you comfortable with 50%? So that's 50% of the entire home. We added in here accessory structures can be used for offices and stuff.
15% of square footage.
Yeah, and then, but then later on for the display of commodities and goods, it also includes the residential front yard. So if I don't know, if I'm making cool garden flamingos, right, I can have 50% of my yard covered in garden flamingos ready for people to pick up.
That way you can't have a full junkyard. You got to keep at least half your lawn clean.
It's between them and the IRS that did them to do this.
Yep.
I don't know if it should really piggyback on that situation.
Maybe you could just send us a copy of Grafton's ordinance and forms, if that's what we base this off, and then people can come back to like have a little bit more.
Yep.
Informed discussion on how they feel about what limits should be.
I can send you my research and notes too, that might be useful. I talked to both of their, planning departments and they were very helpful.
But I guess for you guys, would this be something that you'd want the planning commission to look at and edit to send back to us?
No,
Not at this,
No, we'd have to come up with a product to give them. Okay.
So we'll go to planning commission eventually, but they're asking for it to come back for another revision by you guys first.
Hmm.
I will be ordered for the plan.
shall we move on? Is there any more discussion?
Great.
All right, the next item on the agenda. Discussion and possible action on the purchase of parcel number 090500624008. This topic may necessitate a closed session discussion. Administrator Jenkins,
Oh, wait a minute.
we are going to close session. All right, motion,
I'll make a motion to go into closed session for the discussion of possible action of the purchase of parcel number 090500624008.
we have a second.
I will second.
And before we do a roll call vote, I think what Michelle is asking me to do is to explain why we're going into closed session. Is
Yeah.
that correct? Thank you. We're going into closed session because it involves negotiating the purchase of a property. And in order for us to be able to negotiate in full faith, we need to go into closed session to have that discussion.
All right, so we need a
One second.
Should I?
Just say aye.
it's a roll call
Oh
vote.
my gosh.
A roll call
President Lynn,
here. Yes, aye.
trustee Eipert. Aye. Trustee Frank,
Aye.
trustee Dorwart. Trustee Searing. Aye. Trustee Van Roon.
All right.
We're in closed session. All right, we're back in open session. Last item is discussion and possible action on the purchase of parcel number. We direct Administrator Jenkins to engage in the activities discussed during closed session. Correspondence?
There was none.
Items for future consideration. Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Don, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We're done. Anything for me to sign tonight? No. I didn't.